a sloping hill to the Big Pipe Place, bringing with it Vic Eagle and the news of an American Indian Movement rally at Pierre. Jason, glum because of the harsh words between himself and Aurelia, didn't look up, but Sheridan grinned broadly and greeted his cousin with enthusiasm. "I'm headed to that rally up there in Pierre, and from there I'm going to Mobridge," said Vic. "Yeah? What's going on up there?" asked Sheridan. "They're having an International Indian Treaty Council meeting." He didn't want to show his ignorance, so he didn't ask what that was. He had no clue that nearly 4,000 Indians from 97 tribes across the United States would gather there on the Standing Rock Reservation at Fort Yates to talk about Indian self-government as the only hope for the future survival, the only hope to stop the desecration and theft of their lands. He had no idea that he would be among them, that he would be witness to the complex coming together of Indians from all over the continent at a time of fantastic but not total freedom and emancipation. He couldn't know either then that when he left this time, he would never come home again, and if he did not, a warrior's perfect death would be irretrievable. Even had he known it, he lacked the courage and integrity at this moment to care one way or the other. Within minutes of Vic's arrival, the three young men were on their way to the political gathering, driving hurriedly into the glare of the sun. Warm and unburdened, Sheridan fell asleep in the back seat and woke only when he smelled the sweetness from the joint Vic was smoking. He could feel the reluctant presence of his younger brother, Jason, his tension, anger. He reached up from the back seat and took the cigarette from Vic, put it to his lips, and sucked hard, holding it near and precious. It was a long but pleasant drive along the coteaux of the river into town, the motion of the car slipping through the hills, easy and relaxing. In their sights, nearly the whole 50 miles were the dead, brittle tree trunks that had once lived along the river, and they were shining silver against the river's gray banks. The endless gradations of gray, white, dark brown, and eventually yellow-green streaks across the hills, bathed in the sunlight like paintings under glass, clean and fresh-looking, giving evidence that death need not look frightful. There was a lot of history here along the water's edge, but the young men knew little of it. Beyond the hills and out of sight and invisible, both physically and spiritually, over at Bruley, a tribal man was wiping himself with new sage in preparation for prayers with the people gathered on the reservation for ceremonial reasons. Such communal ritualizations explained the holy presence of the people, who were all blood relatives, who would stand in sharp contrast to the political gathering at Pierre. Smoking Pégy in the warmth of Vic's rumbling car and in the sweaty presence of one another, the young men were quiet, thoughtless, vaguely aware but unwilling to admit to one another that going their way as they were now, as so-called militants, was far removed from the kind of spiritual life common to many of their relatives, the famous medicine men, the traditionals, their fathers. They wanted to cling to the idea that they were warriors in the old way. Vic was driving and talking loudly and obnoxiously. Sheridan, half dozing, half awake, kept his silence. Only Jason, refusing to listen and pay much attention to the polemics of Vic's one-sided conversation, watched the river with interest, finally being forced into thinking ruefully about the time when the rivers all over the country were places of destination for tribal people. In his heart, he thought about Aurelia and felt the sadness of her little story about Itukala place, Little Mouse place, that mythical connection of the river to the land and the people. How much she wanted the names, the connections to continue, how much she wanted to believe that rivers could be mythical connections to the universal spirits, not mere pathways to commerce, nor instruments for profit. He could not stop thinking about her. He longed for her approval and hated himself for needing it. In the foreground were stalks of ironweed, tall swamp grass, and in the distance, as far as the eye could see, the pale, whitened sky. He should have told her that he was leaving, should have made her believe that his bitterness had nothing to do with her. Number 10. They had not expected to be stopped as they pulled into the dusty cowboy town where the rally was to be held, but just beyond a small bridge lying across some backwaters, a policeman wearing the badge of the capital city showing a yellow dome on white background waved them down. He was tall, a strapping man with blonde hair, a thin mustache, and crystal blue eyes. "We're stopping everybody to ask if you got guns and ammo." "Nope." "We're looking to stop anything before it gets started here," he told them. "You got any firearms?" "Hell no, we're here to listen to some speeches." "Oh yeah?" His John Wayne voice sounded like he was about to get tantalized into something he might regret. Jason smiled. This is the kind of guy, he thought, that says, "A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do," and puts his hand on the gun at his hip. "Yeah," said Vic, undaunted and cheery. "You ever heard of freedom of speech?" Jason, slumped in the back seat trying not to be noticed, said quietly to Vic that he'd better shut up before his big mouth got them into trouble. Then Vic laughed his just kidding laugh, showed the cop a valid driver's license while he jumped out, and to show how accommodating he could be, opened the trunk, revealing only the most fragile of spare tires and a couple of unmatched gloves and an empty beer can. The cop waved them on without another word between them. "Jesus Christ, Vic," said Sheridan, whose color was returning to his face. "Don't you know I'm out on bond?" "Oh yeah," his cousin responded, laughing. "Jesus, I forgot. A fucking murder charge, no less. Oh shit." They drove slowly and turned onto one of the residential streets behind the state capitol building. They parked and headed for the rally, the crowd already charged up, tormented, waiting for the new storytellers, the modern pop ritualists who replaced the familiar. And here's Russell Means, folks. Number 11. Sacred and religious in form, a man with red-wrapped braids offering the secrets of self-sacrifice and regeneration appeared in front of the crowd and began acting out the divine play. He carried a torch of fire in one hand and red, black, green, and yellow streamers in the other, strode dramatically to one side of the stage where he handed them away. His beauty dazzling, he wore a beaded vest, jeans, a brilliant-colored shirt of satin with ribbons at the shoulders. It was like he came down from a rainbow, the people said afterwards. His dance with an old mother from the crowd who had no speaking part symbolized his bindings to the earth. Yet, he told them, new rituals and mythic stories will be produced to respond to ecological, social, and economic changes and disasters. He held an eagle wing above his head as the old mother stepped solemnly to the beat of the drum. Figures of others wearing a variety of costumes with their offerings corresponding to rites and invocations no one had ever heard before, stood still upon the concrete steps and told the oldest and the newest stories, chanted known and unfamiliar hymns, suggested the possibility of their own sacrifices. Some stories were known by everyone. I was not hostile to the white man. We had buffalo for food and their hides for clothing, and we preferred the chase to into a life of idleness and the bickerings and jealousies, as well as the frequent periods of starvation at the agencies. But the gray fox came out in the snow and bitter cold and destroyed my village. All of us would have perished of exposure and hunger had we not recaptured our ponies. Then Longhair came in the same way. They say we massacred him, but he would have massacred us had we not defended ourselves and fought to the death. Some of you historians may recognize that as Crazy Horse. Some songs had always been sung. Ate oyabe makabiakte, na ke chine chuse wakalyapni, nitoke chuse uni. The sun, the light of the world, I hear him coming. I see his face as he comes. He makes the beings on earth happy, and they rejoice. Oh, Wankantanka, I offer you this world of light. Most of those who represented a god had learned their parts perfectly and told the others in the most convincing way that they would collaborate with the sun, that they would listen to the songs and prayers of the four grandmothers. The domed building loomed in the background as a symbol of colonialism and offered a realistic background for the long speeches by the man in the beaded vest and another who joined him from the crowd. The dialogue told of the valor of the two speakers, informed the others of veiled intentions from evil ones, exhorted the people to clear the way in a sacred manner, and promised two things. We shall be pierced by holy men, and we shall be told the stories. Meanwhile, the brothers Big Pipe, Sheridan and Jason, along with their cousin Vic Eagle, nearly faint from exhaustion and mental excitement, became part of the choir. They sang, who is the ghost over there? Who is the ghost over there? Even while the hymns, the songs of deep significance were still being composed and sung by the people's voices, and the dances continued, the young male witnesses decided on the setting out to go east in the manner of all young heroes in all myth. They would follow the barren river to the place of the black and red colors, to the famous circle of dancers. The people would crowd about them again, and the song would bring back to life the sacred trees. Their purpose would be to keep alive what everyone knew about tradition at a place made sacred again by their very presence. It would be a journey of lamentation as well as pleasure on the road from oblivion to recovery, a human quest to give back the story. Thank you very much.
We have copies of the Power of Horses.